Hey, Nicole, before you go, you left your big, shapeless burlap sack here.
Well, that's not my burlap sack, Rollie. I thought it was yours.
No, my burlap sack's over here. It's got a big dollar sign on it.
That's a cool sack.
Yeah.
What's in this one, I wonder? It's letters.
Uh-oh.
It's letters from listeners to the podcast?
It's a mailbag episode, baby. We got listener questions, and we're going to listener answer them.
And we did receive all of these questions online, but printed them out and mailed them to ourselves just so we could do the burlap sack bit.
That's right.
And because we support the local post office.
They are doing the Lord's work. Now, technically, we did not just get these any old place online. We got them off of our Patreon page.
Ever heard of it?
Yeah, ever joined it?
Ever patronized it?
Hey, there we go.
Fun.
That's
okay.
fun. Yeah. And all these people did, and they submitted questions, and we grabbed a bunch of them, and we're going to just answer them today, rapid fire
And
style.
none of them were mean questions.
That's true.
At least the ones that Ben selected for us to read.
We might have had a screened list that we saw.
Our listeners are wonderful, and they sent so many questions that we can't answer all of them. We picked some of these based on what we feel qualified to answer without doing a shit ton of research.
Yeah, some of the questions might just become full episodes later.
Yep.
So if we didn't answer yours, there's a chance it'll be answered in an hour-long block.
Yes. Or not.
Yeah. You never know. All right, so let's just jump right into this. Let me lob a question at you, Nicole.
Hit me.
This one comes from Sam Patera, and they ask, what is the status of the global movement to mitigate climate change? As an American, I'm naturally clueless, and it's obviously as bad as it can be here. Hopefully, there is still reason to have hope elsewhere? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Thanks. You guys are, I think it's iconic.
Ooh, love that.
Very, very kind, Sam Patera.
Yes, thank you so much, Sam. So this also kind of connects. I think we're probably going to answer some of these questions about how do you still find hope? We always get a lot of those questions, and the answer is people in other countries are still pursuing climate goals, not perhaps as aggressively as anybody should be, but there's been a ton of new information coming out of China about everything they're doing. They're installing a shit ton of solar. The Atlantic just published a piece with it's just all photographs of how much solar they're installing in China.
It's crazy.
It's wild. They just crossed the threshold of 50% of all new cars sold in China are EVs.
Wow.
A lot of stuff is coming out of China in a way that's it's a bummer for the United States because China is just absolutely going to fucking lap us in terms of technological development.
Eat our lunch, and I was looking
100%.
forward to that lunch.
I love lunch.
Yeah.
But this is something that environmentalists and progressives have been saying for years, where it's the technological revolution is coming. Renewables are the future. EVs are the future. We need to get on board with that, not just because it's the right environmental thing to do, but because that is just what's going to happen.
Yeah. And I would just encourage you to check out this Atlantic article. It's called Photos, the Scale of China's Solar Power Projects. And some of the images, it looks like it's just a futuristic planet, like in the Tron universe or something.
Yeah, it turns out the scale of China's solar installation is large.
Yeah. And likely in charge.
I honestly think that at this point, China has made so much progress on clean tech and renewables that I think I'm constantly saying we got to do an episode about that when we do these more freewheeling episodes. But we should probably update our China episode because even from season 1 to now, they have made so much progress. And I don't want to be a total China booster and be everything they're doing is good and I support all Chinese things. But they have basically correctly identified this is the way things need to go. We have the, manufacturing capability to do all of this and the sort of more authoritarian government that will allow us to plow ahead without facing any opposition.
Allow us, yeah.
Yeah. So they are kind of going full steam ahead.
Sure.
And then there's other smaller places Paris recently released their air pollution maps that show that since their increased efforts to improve bicycle infrastructure and really get people out of cars and banning larger cars from the city, their air pollution's gone way down. So it is, I'm not going to pretend that things are going great in America, but the rest of the world is leaving us behind, and considering everything, I think that's good. Like, it sucks for America, but like, thank God the rest of the world wasn't like, well, America gave up its goals, so to keep up with them, now we got to install a bunch of coal-fired power plants.
Yeah, I mean, it also, to give it a positive spin, it makes it seem a lot more attainable when America figures out that climate change is real to catch up with the rest of the globe.
Yeah. It'll be a lot harder to, for example, our whole China episode was like, well, China pollutes way more than us. And like, once they get to the point that we are once again the biggest carbon emitter, it'll be harder to use that argument.
Yeah, I mean, it already is like, what about China? Yeah, what about China? What are they doing with their solar? You know, like, I don't know.
Rollie, I got a question for you.
Hit me.
From P. Wright, AA. If you had the magical power to change one thing about the world to solve climate change, what would that thing be? And then there's another similar question from Esther Daniel Itterbrink. What does your utopian, we managed to fix this climate thing world look like?
I think this is an interesting pair of questions, because one is like, what's the magic way to solve climate change? And the other one is, what's the utopian vision of a world that has solved climate change? And I think it's kind of important to note here that like, my magic solution for climate change would be if we had a little dial that controlled carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, right? Like, if we could just suck it out of the atmosphere, that would pretty much solve just the climate change problem, because it's largely a CO2 kind of problem. But that doesn't really solve any other problem. Like, we've talked about this before. This is the time when the climate movement and the environmental movement have diverged pretty radically. You can solve climate change and not solve any other problem with environmentalism. And I think this is a situation where, like, people are really trying to invest in the magic dial for CO2 in carbon capture. According to all reports, it ain't working. Like, we're so far behind where we need to be. The scale is so colossal. But also, it doesn't actually fix the other major problems that we're having. Car-centric infrastructure, wealth inequality, fucking genocides around the world. There are so many other problems that are part of the global suite of problems that, like, just solving climate change does not get us to the utopian vision of the world. So I guess if I was just trying to magically only solve climate change, it would be to have like a magic ability to rip CO2 out. If I wanted to get the world to a more utopian situation, I think it would be like massive renewables, electrification, battery power, public transportation, EVs, you know, affordable housing, electrified housing, kind of like build our society around getting our power from renewable sources, getting the power around to as many people as possible, and also getting people out of any kind of internal combustion engine powered transportation.
Yeah. And I think that's worth emphasizing that, like, solving climate change without also addressing other environmental concerns is incomplete. And the steps that we need to take to solve climate change realistically, because we don't have that dial and carbon capture and storage is like not really a thing right now, will make the world better generally.
Yeah, I guess just generally trying to change the way we think about how the world works from like capitalism. Next quarter, I gotta up my gains by 3%, bro, to a more long-term view of society, and like corporations maybe worried more about social good and the public being okay than just like return growth at all costs. It's hard to think about how we actually would go about shifting that, but like changing the mindset a little less from like just late stage free market capitalism to like being like raising the social floor, so that, you know, you're not stepping over somebody on the street to go to your business meeting.
I'm late for my business meeting.
My business meeting. No, my business. All right, Nicole, I got a question for you.
Okay.
This is from Emperor Clobbersaurus.
Okay.
So remember, the first question was from Sam, and this question is from Emperor Clobbersaurus.
Brothers, actually.
Yeah. How did Nicole find getting her master's degree in urban planning? Did she have any background in planning before? I have a degree in mechanical engineering and want to go into urban/transit planning, but I'm not sure how I would do jumping straight into a master's program.
I did not have any background in planning before I got into the program. My background was exclusively comedy and writing.
Hey.
And I got into the program, I think, because like everything I wrote about was like, I'm a good communicator, and planners are not good communicators. And apparently that was all it took. And I also took the GRE and stuff. How did I find the master's program? I will be honest. In retrospect, because I always had kind of one foot in and one foot out, because I've always wanted to do television.
You minored in the hokey pokey. Let's go, dab.
I think because I wasn't invested in the same way that people who were like, I want to be a career planner. I think I probably personally didn't get as much out of it as I could have if I'd been more dedicated. I think once you get into a lot of grad programs, you get out what you put in. And I don't think my inputs were enough to provide sufficient outputs that today I could go walk into a planning office and be like, set me up, boys. I did like it. And I do think that somebody with a mechanical engineering background would be an asset at a planning office, because planning kind of touches everything. And there is a distinction between, for example, traffic engineers, and I know that's different from a mechanical engineer, but bear with me, between a traffic engineer and a transportation planner. And I think having somebody who can speak both of those languages would really be helpful in moving forward certain plans.
Also, it seems like this person is an emperor, so they probably have a lot of sway wherever
that would help.
Their jurisdiction is.
That will help.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking about it, you can audit courses, and I would recommend doing that before jumping into any graduate program, because you might get to a course and be like, oh, I hate this. This is not what I thought it was going to be at all. And so I would recommend doing that and seeing if it's the kind of thing that you would like. But also bear in mind that, I can't speak for every grad program, but for USC's grad program, I think you have to be fairly self-driven to figure out how to apply the theory that you're learning in school in order to really be able to work in the field.
Did you have a lot of colleagues who then went into the field?
All of them.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
You're the black sheep.
Yes, I am.
Wow.
But yes, I do recommend it. But it's not like a factory where they churn out good urban planners. It's a grad program. You got to be a grown-up and not a goofball, which is what I was.
I kind of had a similar experience with my master's program at Columbia. I went because I want, it's in New York. I was in New York, and it's got a good name recognition. I found the same thing where you have to do all the reading, you have to do all the work, and you can probably skate by without doing a lot of it, but you won't get as much out of the program. And I saw some of my colleagues in the program kind of just skating by and trying to do it really quick, and I could tell they weren't retaining the information quite as much as they could have been.
Yeah. I still have obviously held on to sort of the lofty ideas of urban planning.
You carry your degree around everywhere you go.
Yeah, I glued it to my hand. But if you took me to an urban planning office and they were like, great, we're making a new development, you design it, I'd be like, I don't know how.
I'm going to put a pool here.
Yeah. I hope that answers the question. I would recommend it, but I would recommend dipping a toe in and auditing some classes, or to beef up my application for USC because I didn't have any kind of background. I took a couple classes through Coursera, which you could get a little certificate for, just to show them that I was serious about it. I don't know if it helped my application or if it mattered or anything.
Oh,
but
it helped.
But that is a thing that you can do for free from home.
Yeah. Some master's programs are just money generators for universities, so watch out for those.
Yeah. Okay, Rollie.
Yes.
This is from Aiden Hall.
Oh, nice.
How can we reconcile climate change while also trying to provide for our families? I say this because I do care about climate change, but also drive a big-ass semi-truck up and down our country, moving brand new furniture, not exactly an actual need like food, etc. First of all, I want to say I think it's cool that our podcast might be being played in the cab of a semi-truck driving across the country right now. I never would have expected that.
We should play a little bit of country music every once in a while. Good cross-country driving music. I think that's a great question. I think it actually is the same question as we get in a different form, which is what can I personally do about climate change, right? That question is I have to live in a society that is constantly burning fossil fuels all the time, and I have to work way more hours than a lot of people used to because of how inflation and wealth inequality has stratified. But I'm also concerned about the very real danger of climate change. How does this all come together? And I think it's the same thing where you're not going to fix this by yourself. I think we've all sort of been marinating in America's exceptionalism for a long time, and it feels like we just got to try so hard to win the gold medal of the climate race. But I think it's ultimately like you're underestimating what you can get done in a year and overestimating what you can get done right now. So it's a slow and steady wins the race kind of mindset. And I think the way I would start if I were you is to figure out a way to get involved, either in like local politics, either even running for something yourself. I think that'd be a pretty cool campaign. Like, I've driven all across this great nation. I know I've seen America from sea to shining sea, and I think I know what's wrong with it. You know, I don't know. I'll write your campaign slogan if you like, and I'll chop that down. That's way too long to fit on in a bumper sticker or whatever. But like, you know, getting involved in somebody else's campaign, getting involved in a local organization that's dealing with like land reform or parking requirements or anything, you know, just pick a topic that seems reasonable to you. Maybe some kind of, I guess if you're a truck driver, maybe it's some kind of like EV requirements or something like that. I'm not really sure. But getting involved and figuring out how the wheels of our society kind of turn at a political level and figure out how you can insert yourself there.
I will add to that several things because I love the sound of my own voice. If you're a trucker, I think there's probably a high chance that you're unionized, maybe with the Teamsters, and I would get more involved with your union and push your union because unions are powerful political constituencies, and push them to like advocate.
That's a really good answer. Pretend I said that. I actually said that. You know what? Hey, here's the thing, Aiden. Truckers are often in unions. Sometimes the Teamburgers,
you got it.
Teamburgers union. And so that's a good union. And what were you saying? Shit.
And I was saying if you get involved, you can either just like be more vocal at meetings and be like, hey, I don't think, for example, like electric trucks are necessarily like a threat to us. I think we should embrace more green technology, et cetera. Or you could even run for a spot on your like union leadership. So that's another way to get involved that might feel a little bit more germane to you than necessarily running for local office if you're not prepared to do that yet. It's also good prep for running for office. But there's also been a few pieces published recently that kind of do address this question head on. Hamilton Nolan, who I think is like one of the best writers today.
Great name. Good
Love
American
Hamilton
name.
Nolan. He's so good. I subscribe to his newsletter, which I think is also his blog. Substack. I don't know. I don't know what's a blog and what's a newsletter anymore. The lines have blurred. But he sent one out called "When Do You Need to Quit Your Job?" And it is it's specifically addressing Palantir. And the answer is if you work at Palantir at all, quit. But he does, for example, draw a distinction between like the unionized doormen who work in the building that Palantir occupies and like the guys who are designing Palantir's harmful technology.
What is their slogan? Technology that dominates or something?
Something like that.
It's really like that.
Bummer.
Palantir.
Yeah.
Software that dominates. As long as it's not ski season.
Actually, while Rollie was doing that, I pulled up Hamilton Nolan's piece, and we'll put the link in the show notes. The whole thing is worth reading. I don't want to steal.
Read it. No, read it.
I don't want to steal Hamilton's, ad revenue, subscriber revenue. I don't know. I'm going to read a paragraph and not the whole thing, and you should read the
Just
whole thing on
Venmo
your own
him
time and give him the
$250.
clicks. Where do you locate the dividing line between trying to change a bad organization and time to quit to protect your own soul? These judgments are not clear-cut. Those big tech companies have not been shy about firing employees who have tried to organize or protest. It's no coincidence that unionizing these companies is difficult. They make it difficult. I want my email account to work, but I don't want to facilitate quadcopter assassinations of starving civilians. Reining in huge tech companies from within is a noble aspiration that should continue as long as practically possible. Otherwise, we rely on those heroes of the U.S. Congress to enforce global human rights, which is funny. So we're going to put Hamilton's piece, and I remember there was a Slate question that was explicitly like, "Dear Slate advice columnist, I am a lawyer for a big oil company, and I hate climate change, but I need to pay off my student loans. Should I quit?" And the answer was yes. So for you in the trucking industry, shipping goods across the country, like that is actually a necessary service. Whether or not trucking is the optimal way to do it, we can argue about. So I wouldn't quit your job just because there are emissions associated with it. I would first like go to your union. I would first maybe try to find a different organization, or maybe you can start shipping something that you find more personally valuable. But it is something that you can continue to reckon with over time. And I don't think there is an onus on anybody to quit immediately unless you are straight up working for Exxon or something. Does that seem right to you?
Yeah, that sounds right. I think it's a little bit like shareholder activism where you're like, oh, we're going to get a bunch of board seats and then make ExxonMobil stop making oil. And it's like, no, you're not. That's core business shit. Like, you're not going to change that. But if you are part of a company that is, maybe high in the emissions department, but there is a path forward, or you could work towards like reducing those emissions or something like that.
Yes. And that's a great segue to this section of Hamilton Nolan's piece that I want to read.
Hey.
And again, like, give him the clicks, go read it. I'm only going to read a small section because I think it's good and everybody should read it. But this is relevant. Let me use an example from the media industry. I apologize for using this stupid industry as an example, but I must write what I know.
Wow, you're in the media industry, Nicole. You going to take that?
It's stupid. It is stupid. Says Hamilton Nolan. The New York Times is a high-quality news organization that publishes many high-quality and informative stories, and then also sometimes publishes things that are bigoted or ignorant or ridiculous. I do not believe that the New York Times reporter who is covering, the war in Ukraine is obligated to quit because of the latest idiotic Bret Stephens column. What needs to happen instead is that the people running the New York Times need to run it better. It is a useful organization with flaws, and the task is to improve it. Fox News, by contrast, is a propaganda organization whose underlying purpose is to use deception to build support for a right-wing political project. Any real journalism it does is purely incidental to that underlying goal. Are there quote-unquote real reporters working for Fox News? Yes, but I would argue that the organization's very purpose is so detrimental to society that contributing in any way to the ability of the company to flourish is immoral. Trying to improve Fox News is like trying to improve a cup full of rat poison. No amount of it is going to be good for you. He is awesome. Hamilton Nolan rips. He's such a good writer. And I think that this is exactly the point you were making, where like any job at Shell is probably pretty evil. Whereas if you work for, say, a car company that is not focused on shoving SUVs down our throats, you could make the argument that you were trying to get the fleet to shift to EVs, for example.
Yeah.
It's questionable, but I don't think it's essential that you quit your job. I think you got to like really look inside and ask, like, is this an organization that I can work on changing?
And while you're at it, honk that horn, buddy. All right, Nicole, here's a question from all one word. Bees are coming.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So once again, you had a question from Emperor Clobbersaurus, bees are coming, and Sam.
Is the question from bees are coming just, ah?
Well, that would be bees are here. This is from Bees Are Coming.
Okay.
Can you tell us something that is actually making you feel optimistic/hopeful?
Kind of covered this in the first question, but like...
Well, then say something different.
Okay.
Give the people content, Nicole.
I think the proliferation of clean energy everywhere outside the United States is a big one. I think that Paris study that came out that was like a big deal that showed how much they've improved emissions is like hugely hopeful. You know something that I saw this week that I was like, hell yeah, that rocks. Both Noel Gallagher from the band Oasis, who I love, who I'm seeing in September.
Every episode,
who are the best.
Nicole finds a way to get Oasis into here.
I love Oasis. Both Noel Gallagher from Oasis and Dua Lipa were taking the train this week. And they are like two of the most famous people in the world. And rather than take a private car or a private plane somewhere, Noel Gallagher took the train to band practice. This was actually like 2 or 3 weeks ago. And then 2 days ago, Dua Lipa.
It just arrived.
Yeah, it just got there. Real slow train.
Yeah.
It was not an express. And then yesterday, Dua Lipa, with bodyguards, obviously, just got on the train and took that instead of a plane or something. And I think it's cool that certain celebrities, not all of them, but certain ones are like putting their money where their mouth is. And I think, again, it's not going to happen in America, but that is something I don't think you would have seen maybe even 5 years ago. And so it's nice. Yeah. I think that is just one little thing that made me go, hell yeah.
I'll dovetail on that a little bit. There is a little bit of higher speed rail kind of cropping up in the USA. We got the Brightline. Mm-hmm. There's like Brightline West that's coming up. So Brightline is in mostly in Florida.
Right.
Brightline West, I think, is going to go from like the LA area to Las Vegas.
The LA area. It's not in LA, which irritates me, but we'll save it for a rail episode.
Yeah, which is like, I mean, this is a spit in the ocean compared to Europe and Asia's high-speed rail, but it's like slowly kind of seeming to weasel its way online, and I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I'm slightly optimistic about the next 20 years of rail infrastructure. I will say that the Trump administration pulling funds for California high-speed rail is a real kick in the dick to the answer I just gave. But, administrations change, things change. There seems to be a little bit of daylight if we can pull our heads out of our asses.
Yeah. Yes. Great answer. The answer is not much, but you got to look for the helpers, children.
Yeah.
Look for the Dua Lipas. Okay, Rollie, this question is from Kristen P. In your opinion, what are the most important concepts to address when covering climate change to inspire people to take action rather than slide into nihilism? I'm a high school teacher, and discussing climate change is such a bummer. I don't want to leave my students feeling hopeless and powerless in the face of something so important. Caught your live show in Brooklyn last month.
Oh.
Keep up the good work.
Wow. Thanks so much for coming out to the live show.
Thanks, Kristen.
Yeah, I think it's easy to be anxious about the climate crisis when you try to think about it in one giant amorphous block. But I think breaking it up into pieces is the way I stay optimistic about it. For instance, like one big piece is oil company malfeasance, right? Like oil companies knew about climate change, and yet they kind of continued to obfuscate the truth and make money as fast as they could. They employed the best climate scientists in the world for a long time. They had the best projections, and you can go back and look at their projections, and they're still very, very accurate. Like, these guys knew what they were doing. So I get a lot of power out of kind of acknowledging that this is a corporate capitalist caused problem, and the solution is like undoing that. It's also like it's sort of the difference between thinking about Andor and thinking about Star Wars: A New Hope, where like Andor is the universe devolving into fascism, and that is really horrifying. And then A New Hope is like, oh yeah, an upstart bunch of heroes exploited the Empire's complacency and like figured out a way around it.
Sorry, real quick.
Yeah.
Do you have a metaphor for non-virgins?
Nicole, I haven't seen season 2 of Andor, so. And if you think about it like that, it's less this like inevitable crush of the atmosphere and more like these companies that are run by people causing this problem, and it just makes it a little more actionable for me. So it makes me less anxious.
Yeah, and I think like also there's a writer from Colorado named Chase Woodruff who back on the days of Twitter, he tweeted something that I think about all the time, where he was like, climate change is getting worse and it's here. And it is like, even if we take perfect action tomorrow, climate change is going to get worse. But the way to think about it is there is no magic point at which we will not have to do anything anymore. And there is also no point of no return where we can't make things better. Like any amount of CO2 that we prevent from going into the atmosphere is a good thing. And so it is worth trying, even though definitely like there will be severe impacts from climate change already. And the other thing is like, I think what attracted me to urban planning is it is a very tangible way of addressing some of the effects of climate change. So for example, there's a lot of ways to like keep a city cool. And I think learning about all of the little cool ways that we can handle this transition and still maintain some kind of quality of life. Because particularly if you're working with like high school kids, they're probably like, oh, my world as an adult is going to be fucked. I'm going to be hot and miserable and not have power. And there's going to be food shortages, etc. And I think like without lessening the urgency of addressing climate change, I think you can also talk about the ways that we will make it bearable for humans. And I think that does help.
All right. Well, let's keep this teacher train rolling with another teacher. We have a question from Devin Catt. As a NYC high school STEM teacher and aspiring atmospheric science graduate student.
Whoa.
Holy shit. Devin is crushing it. I love to listen to your podcast to and from work. Hello.
Okay.
Thank you, Devin. I have a few questions. Take your pick, and we're just going to pick this one. What are your favorite non-technical and technical books on urban planning / climate science?
Oh, great. I mean, with urban planning, a lot of the ones that always get mentioned are mentioned for a reason. So the quintessential book on urban planning is Jane Jacobs' The Death and Life of Great American Cities. And I think that is like the best one to start with. For something that is more technical, I feel like your video did such a good job with this, but Donald Shoup's The High Cost of Free Parking.
Sure.
I recommend that one because it is surprisingly engaging and funny for a 900-page book about parking. But because it is so specific, it really teaches you to look at a thing in a city neutral space. It's something that people don't really think about and have to engage with that specific thing. And there's so many other things that you can do that with in a city. So when you first start to notice, like, parking does take up fucking a lot of space for nothing.
You really take the blue pill. Which
you take the red
one?
pill.
Yeah, once you like recognize why there's so much parking all around, you just start seeing way too much parking everywhere, and it really makes you
It helps
out.
you look at the world in a different way, for sure.
Red pill style.
Red pill style.
Oh, there's too much parking, and these ladies gotta go.
Another thing that I really recommend is not a specific book, but I mean, you live in New York City, but this is like broadly for listeners everywhere. Find a book about your city specifically, and it'll like teach you to look at the city in a new way. Obviously, this isn't available if you live in like a town of 100 people in the middle of nowhere.
Some shit-ass town.
There are a lot of like local historians who just get really into the history of your community and will put together a little self-published book, and that's worth reading.
I bet you'd be hard-pressed to find a town that there's not at least one book written about.
I think that's true. And I think they're generally worth reading because it's the town you live in. And again, it teaches you to look at the city in a new way. I actually don't have one that I love for New York because I generally hate the way people write about New York.
It's just like such a character in my life, you know?
Anything can happen there.
The city that never dreams. All right, I got a couple books for you.
Wait, just real quick. If you're in Los Angeles, one that I really like is called Sidewalking in LA. It's about walking in LA, which is a thing that not a lot of people do. So I like that one. I like a lot of books about LA, but your prompt is local book about where you live.
Nice. I got two books that I'll fire off real quick. This one dovetails nicely with Nicole's pick. It's called Paved Paradise by Henry Grabar.
Love Paved Paradise.
It's great. Henry Grabar is a journalist. He's not like necessarily a parking professor, super expert, but he finds like a lot of really interesting parking stories, and I think it was a bestseller. It's fucking great. It's a real nice read. And then the other one is Climate Change, What Everyone Needs to Know by this guy, Joseph Romm. That was the book that I read as I was deciding to start doing the Al Gore and Inconvenient Talk Show. So that's like a real gateway drug sort of book.
I'll also recommend both the book and the documentary Merchants of Doubt, which is how I kind of got into climate change. If you don't have a lot of time, the documentary is just as accessible as the book.
I honestly think it's more accessible than the book.
Interesting. Okay, so then I recommend the document. I haven't read the book. It's been sitting on my shelf for years, and I swear to God I'm going to do it one day. But the documentary is really good. It takes a couple hours, and it does a really good job showing how the oil companies have lied their way into their massive financial success.
Now, Nicole, Xantor T. Magician.
Oh, hi, Xantor.
These people asking questions have names like the band U2, where like they couldn't decide what their names are going to be. Yeah, this is Adam, and this is Larry, and this guy is The Edge, and that guy's Bono. That is a direct joke from my friend David Twitey. So if you got
thanks, David.
If you like that joke, you like David Twitey's
Okay,
comedy.
Get back to Xantor
T. Magician.
Okay.
He says, dare me to read all of Merchants of Doubt next week?
Yes.
I double dare you to watch the film also.
Nice.
So make it a double.
Great. Okay, this is from Pontus Broberg. Don't know if this is a name that I can make fun of or a cultural thing that would be insensitive.
Well, let's roll those dice, Nicole.
Personally, I feel that I have to deal with a lot of anxiety around the subject of climate change. I feel a constant push and pull between feeling like I'm not doing enough and feeling like I am a slave in a system that makes it almost impossible for me to make a difference through climate-conscious decisions. So I wonder, how's your own climate anxiety? How are you dealing with it? Did it become worse or better throughout the years of researching the topic? Any tips to a generally very anxious Swedish human being? Okay, Swedish. So cultural, but narrowly within the bounds of being okay to make fun of.
Yeah, you can make fun of Swedes for another 3 or 4 years at least. Yeah. Great question, Pontus Broberg. I've answered this question a couple times to various people, and I'll do it to you too. You
better watch out or he'll do it to you too.
I'll do it to you, bro. I have very little climate anxiety, despite not being super optimistic about the way we're addressing climate change. And I think it's because climate anxiety comes from a place of sort of feeling powerless. So like it is a reaction to not feeling like you're doing enough. And I have sort of, for better or worse, tricked my brain into thinking that like, if I spend 50 hours a week working on Climate Town and the Climate Deniers playbook and various other climate projects, I'm sort of doing something that is vaguely forwarding the climate movement. And I've talked to a number of other people who are journalists or writers, and they have a similar take, right? Where if like they're actively working on it, even if their shit's not getting seen by anyone, you know, if they're actively like thinking about it and being strategic about how they are trying to communicate it, or they're working for a company that's doing battery storage or solar or something, your climate anxiety tends to go down despite your extra field of information not being more rosy because you feel more like part of the solution.
You feel like you have agency.
Yeah.
Okay, and Rollie, do you have any advice for somebody who doesn't run a YouTube channel?
Yes, that's a great question. Go to youtube.com. No, I think the way to think about this is like, it's easy to feel like, oh, I'm being a bad climate person because I'm not recycling hard enough, or I drive the wrong car or something, or as if there is a person giving you a grade on your environmentalism. And I would encourage you to think about your environmentalism as to what extent you are like trying to change the system from wherever you are. So finding groups of like-minded people, finding organizations that you can work with, finding political parties you can be affiliated with, work for, that kind of thing that kind of match up with your values. The way to change something, I think, is through mass action and not like recycling so hard. And so I think try to give yourself a little bit of slack on the am I a perfect recycler, and try to lean more into how am I organizing, how am I working with other people to sort of forward the macro goal that we have.
Yeah, and I think sometimes that can also be anxiety inducing because you're like, well, I'm not Greta Thunberg on a boat, like devoting my whole life to this. And I saw, I don't remember if it was an article or what, but this was way back during like 2020.
It's probably a tweet knowing you, Nicole. Probably a skeet.
It was 2020. This was before Elon bought it, but it was during the George Floyd protests. Somebody somewhere was like, I know a lot of people are feeling bad that they're like not out there getting arrested right now, and a lot of people you can't. Maybe you have 2 little kids at home, and if you go to jail, like they go to foster care. So not everybody can be doing that all the time. So you have to figure out what role you play within the broader movement. So maybe you have 2 little kids at home, and like you can't risk getting arrested, but you can like
use
contribute.
them as human shields.
But you could maybe contribute to a bail fund for the people who are on the front lines doing that. Or you can be in person, like talking to your representatives in Congress. So just like find a way to participate in what you view as valuable climate action, even if the thing that you're doing might not seem important in the same way that like these headline making things are. Like I get seasick as hell. There's no way I'm going on a boat for the rest of my life, but I can figure out how to support the people who are doing that kind of work.
All right, Nicole, last question for you. This is from James Lott. If I had a letter through my door telling me that my council wants to build houses on greenbelt land near my house, presuming I'm okay with development, what should I tell my council that they should be doing at a very minimum for sufficient urban planning, e.g. solar for all houses, cycle lanes, schools, etc.? How should they plan to minimize the amount of cars they add to the nearby road infrastructure? And I will say, throughout this entire letter, it is so clear this person is British.
That was going to be the first thing that I said.
It's they spell they put every possible British word in here, like minimize with an S, letter through my door.
Yes,
E.g. instead of I.e.
Even the
cycle lanes.
The local council.
Yeah.
Is like, so actually that is relevant to what I'm going to say, which is I've only ever worked in planning in America, and I'm not super familiar with planning overseas. So I don't want to give you any specific, like go to your local alderman or whatever, because I don't know what the situation there is. My answer to anybody asking this question is it will depend a little bit on where you live. So like if you're on the Isle of Skye in Scotland, like what a community needs to look like is different than if a new development goes up like in the suburbs of London, just because there's like different amenities, and like it would be crazy to ask for a train station on the Isle of Skye where it would maybe make sense in a Greenbelt area near London. So you need to be somewhat cognizant of like what the needs are around you. I think in general, the way to think about it is like, what are the amenities available to people who live in this community? And also, is there a diverse housing mix? Which I think is often overlooked in that community. This is something that actually the menswear guy posts about sometimes on Blue Sky and previously on Twitter, where he was like, the reason that you find a lot of niche clothing services in Japan is because proportionally their housing costs are lower and like you can get a cheap studio apartment. So if you're a guy who just like wants to make specialty loafers for a living,
sounds awesome.
I know, right? Then you can just have a quiet life doing that because you can afford a studio apartment. In Brooklyn right now, and I assume all of New York, but I've only like been
only ever been to Brooklyn.
I've only ever been to Brooklyn. A big problem for families is that there are so few 3-bedroom apartments, and the ones that they have are in such high demand that it's like the cost is prohibitive for most middle-class families. There's like a whole article about it that I'll see if I can find and post in the show notes, but no promises about like the finances of why that is. And so without like a diverse mix of housing, you both can't have like the little craftsmen that like make a place interesting and like make, amenities convenient for people. And you also can't have families living there. You're basically pricing out like a lot of people who make a community vibrant. And then you're having to like push families further out into the suburbs and they got to drive more, et cetera, et cetera.
You're pricing out the shoes and the feet.
And then what's left? So diverse housing mix, both in terms of the size of apartments and the types of housing. Contrary to popular belief, I'm not opposed to all single family homes, but zoning just for single family homes is a problem. And then once you have housing mix and a mixed use development, which means that it's not just one kind of zoning use, you can have housing and you can also have schools. Heavy industry you could probably keep out, but like you could have retail there. I think advocating for mixed use and a diverse housing mix are the two most important things. And then after that, depending on where you live, like getting rid of parking minimums would be a big one. Again, if you live somewhere like Grand Junction, Colorado, and you were advocating for a mixed use development, because of the location, people there simply are going to have cars. And so that is a situation where it might make more sense to have what's sometimes referred to as like mullet development, where there is like walkable streets in front, parking lot in the back.
Oh, okay.
Which is like not something that I would ever advocate for downtown Denver, because you should be able to take transit options everywhere. So
it's already too many mullets in Denver.
Tell me about it. There's more mullets in Grand Junction. So
maybe per capita. Maybe.
So you know what? I guess the mullet is making a comeback among the bisexual youth.
I have a mullet currently.
Sort of.
I'm neither bisexual nor a youth.
Anyway, so diverse mix of uses, diverse mix of types of housing stock. The other thing is, this is something that you have talked about, electrified buildings would be a big one, because
never fucking heard of them.
Because gas companies try to sneak in through the water heater or through the oven, and then you're just on gas forever. So I think those things in that order, and then also just make sure you're considering like the surrounding circumstances and whether like a certain kind of development makes sense where you are.
Yeah. And ultimately, there are groups currently in your area, James, that probably have all this and a billion times better because they live there and they know what the real local issues are. So, like, don't think that you're an island. Go find those groups. They exist. Find them and hear them out.
And the other thing that I would say is go to your local council meeting, or like whatever the equivalent is of your local city planning meeting, where they ask for feedback on new things, and be excited about stuff. Because the only people who go to most city planning meetings are like, they're putting in a bike lane and it's going to ruin my life. And so then whenever there's somebody who's like, I'm so excited to be able to take my kid to like walk to a restaurant. I cannot wait for more of my friends to move to the neighborhood, because I never get to see them because we all just have to get houses that we can afford that are all over the city. Like, express excitement, because it's not something that they ever hear about.
My kid loves yelling at waiters.
Yes, exactly. That is the perfect thing to say.
Yeah.
So I hope that was helpful. I know I tried to pack a lot into a short answer, which just meant that I talked faster. but that's fine.
I think you gave James a lot to think about.
Hey, that's fun because his last name's
The
Lot.
news at 11.
And one thing I maybe didn't talk about very much is the topic of our next question, which I'm going to ask you, Rollie.
It could be anything, my God.
This is Matt Seehoff.
Okay.
Not really a name to make fun of, just sort of a good, robust name.
He's a salty Seehoff.
I give that
I'm
a
reaching.
C minus.
Yeah. Oh, what minus?
C minus. Oh, okay. See,
okay.
we got there. Okay. One counter argument to public transit funding I often hear is it costs too much money. How do we effectively measure and communicate the actual return on investment of transit funding, including the knock-on effects, to help us make better informed decisions?
Yeah. I mean, I think this is a classic example of an argument that is not true. The idea that, this subway costs too much money, it is actually going to probably make you a ton of money because so many people are going to get to use it. The per use cost of the subway is going to be so low once it runs in it. Like New York City subways transport more people per day than all domestic flights. Like we are cramming people into the subway. We are zipping them around town. That is an incredible investment. I think public transportation is almost always a really good investment because you're not like leaving vehicles parked on the street, taking up important street space, like rent free. You're not like driving them on roads that are constantly needing to be repaired. Trains aren't constantly crashing into other trains. That would be horrifying. But like there's there's so much
Final
cost.
Destination 3.
Yeah. Just all extremely preventable deaths. There's just so much cost to things that are not public transportation that we just don't calculate. That like public transportation, I cannot stress this enough. It's like it becomes so smart and cheap and quality of life and health and like you pollute a lot less. There's less lung disease. Like people are staying out of hospitals. It's crazy how much better and cheaper it is in the long run. I guess it's just about like reframing how much it costs to like put a train in versus send hundreds of thousands of people to the hospital for particulate matter in their lungs and car crashes and the cost of a car. You know, it's just the cost is astronomically more for the way we currently do things.
So I'm going to say something controversial.
If you say something controversial, I will scream.
It's maybe controversial is not the right word, but I'm actually going to push back on this question a little bit because in my experience, and this is just anecdotal, but when somebody says public transportation costs too much money, I actually don't think they care about how much money it costs. I think that they have decided that they don't want public transit for a variety of other reasons that maybe they can't even articulate, and the cost makes it seem like a rational decision. And I think that this is very often a scenario where they are trying, again, consciously or not, to set you up to make an argument to delay or distract, and no amount of like doing the math for them is going to convince them.
Yeah, I mean, like there is cost overruns in how we do public transportation. Like it costs a lot to make trains and make subways, right? Like it just costs a ton, but it costs so much more to keep doing things the way we've done. I think it's like there is a sunk cost. So from right now for like 10 years, I don't know how long it's going to take for like a new subway to pay itself off, but like, yeah, that's a little bit of cost in the red, but like long-term thinking, this is the thing. The moment you start thinking long-term, public transportation pencils out so easily.
Totally. And what I'm saying is I think that these people could totally understand that. And ultimately, I think what they're saying is, well, I don't want to take public transportation. So it doesn't make sense.
But still, like, then get people off the road, you know, like then public transportation takes those people that you hate to be stuck in traffic with, and it puts them in a little box underground and zips them around like a pneumatic tube. So like that, I mean, I don't know. We both are public transportation heads, but it's just like such a no-brainer to me.
Yeah. What I would say to you, Matt, is like, these are conversations that you were going to get bogged down in that I actually don't think are going to move the needle very much on these people at all if you make the best argument in the entire world that nobody can refute. Because I don't think that the actual concern is like, well, I would definitely want there to be a train here if it didn't cost any money. And I think this is a little bit similar to the way that the Democrats are frustrating because they spend so much time trying to peel off voters from the center instead of like trying to form coalitions with voters on the left. This is maybe a bit of a stretch, but like I think rather than you trying to convince like local homeowners that like actually this is a good use of your tax money, I think forming a coalition with other people who are maybe not actively participating in the process might get you a lot further. I truly believe, having talked to a lot of people, I'm sure that there are some people, like, for example, in California, famously, to try to get high-speed rail up, there has been, like, I don't even want to say cost overruns. It's just, like, way exceeded what they thought the budget was, but...
Environmental reviews, too, take so fucking long, and, like, a couple of judges here and there, yeah.
But transportation itself wasn't what was expensive about that. It was that people didn't want the transportation, and that drove the cost way up. And so I do think it is kind of a fool's errand to make the argument. I think it is useful to know all of this so that people who are curious about it, like people who are like dipping a toe into urban planning and are like, I'm seeing the world in a new way, will like be able to make the connection. But if you're talking to like your uncle who's like, the trains are expensive and nobody rides them anyway, then like I don't think you're convincing him. And I think you're banging your head against the wall. So I think really consider what is the actual perspective of the person that you're talking to? And is there somebody else that you could build a coalition with who you don't have to convince of the power of public transportation first?
Yeah, and then ultimately, like, the government has a bunch of money and they spend it. What would you rather they spend it on? Would you rather they spend it on fucking missiles that will blow people up? Or would you like them to spend it on permanent hard infrastructure that will move people around so that they can better their position in life, stay healthier, enjoy their one life they have to live on Earth?
Rollie,
you're the missiles?
I am not willing to trade the weekly parades for the police. You know what? People could hop on a float if they want public transportation so bad. They could hop on the We Love the Cops float.
We Love the Cops float. Yeah, they can crawl into the barrel of the gun.
Sponsored by Raytheon.
That spins around, pointing the gun with no trigger discipline.
Yeah, government funding exists to fund services, or at least it did. And you have to decide which services are valuable to you. And I think not enough people value public transportation to spend money on it.
Great answer, Nicole. And also, nuanced? Who is she? All right, that concludes our mailbag episode. We got some mail, we read it,
and we bagged it up. And if you would like to ask us a question that maybe we'll answer, unless it was one of the several questions we got that was like, that is going to take me 40 hours to research, then you should subscribe to our Patreon.
Our Patreon? What's our Patreon?
Our Patreon is our Patreon, where our subscribers get access to bonus episodes. They can ask...
Hold up. There's extra episodes of this podcast that are only available to Patreon subscribers?
Oh, yeah, baby.
And you call those boner episodes?
No, I called them bonus
episodes. Got it.
Now I'm calling them boner episodes. The most recent one, we watched a very funny educational, in quotes, video called Fuelless.
That was a boner episode.
That was a boner episode. A parody of the movie Clueless. And if you want to listen to the whole thing, subscribe to our Patreon.
We also got ad-free episodes. If you're hearing ads on this and you're like, oh, God, I can't handle another ad. We have a solution for you, Patreon.
I mean, here's the problem with wanting an ad-free podcast is we play a lot of ads on the podcast to talk about. So you're always going to get a little bit of ads.
Yeah, but we don't then come on at the end of our regular ads and go, whoa, wasn't that fucking stupid?
That would be fun, though.
That would be kind of fun.
And perhaps most importantly, if you subscribe to the Patreon, you are supporting this show. We have a number of researchers, we have producers, and we pay all of them. And the reason that we're able to pay all of them and only lose a little bit of money is because of the Patreon.
That's right. Yeah, we're an independent media company. We're not taking big oil money dollars. We're not even taking George Soros money because he hasn't offered to give it to us.
George!
Look, until George Soros knocks down our door with a fat $1 billion check, we will stay independent and we'll keep just saying the things that we think are true. All right, Nicole. I've got to go film a pickup for an episode of Climate Town.
And I have a mandatory bonding event for work.
Hey! See you next time.
Bye! The Climate Deniers Playbook was created by Rollie Williams, Ben Boult, and me, Nicole Conlan. Rollie and I are the hosts. Ben is the executive producer, and the show is edited by Laura Conte.
The show is also produced by Daniella Philipson and Irene Plagianos.
Archival research by Margot Sachs, with additional research and fact-checking by Carly Rizzuto and Canute Haroldson.
Our theme music was created by the wickedly talented Tony Dominic.
And our show's artwork is by Jordan Dahl, who, okay, yes, used to be my boyfriend, but now he's my fiancé.
Oh, shit. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And special thanks to the Civil Liberties Defense Center.
And to all of you who listen to the show.
And apparently, even the credits.
Rollie, don't neg our listeners.
Well, how else am I going to demonstrate I'm a high-value male?
Oh, God, don't ever say high-value male ever again.
But I am a high-value male.
Why aren't you wearing that top hat?
Because it makes me tall.
I love lunch.